Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. I am Nurmina Usman Marin, the first reporter of Group 4, which is Module 6. The title is the Reasoning, Immediate Inference. So we will discuss the reasoning, immediate inference. So introduction, dialectic is the archaic name of logic. It is a discipline of philosophy concerned with the principles of reasoning. To situate logic in the study of philosophy, it is a fitting that a cursory representation about a philosophy be done, specifically on matter of meaning, origin, and division. This chapter takes as its focus the third mental operation called reasoning and the processes it involves. So next is objective. So at the end of the topic, so the student should be able to discuss the reason, immediate inference, and observe the methods of reasoning. So lecture or discussion, we will discuss the reasoning, immediate inference. So the definition of reasoning is a mental operation through which the agreement or disagreement of two ideas is inferred from their own relation to a common third idea. So, method of reasoning. So, there are two methods involved in the reasoning. So, the first is induction and deduction. Induction or deductive reasoning is a one which proceeds from an individual or particular data to a general or universal conclusion. So, for example, is Rodolfo Luzada is a man. Rodolfo Luzada is a mortal. So, all men are mortal. So, and on the other hand, deduction or deductive reasoning is one which proceeds from a universal data to a particular or individual conclusion. So for the example is all government employees are mortal. All honest person are government employees. Every honest person is mortal. So reasoning is expressed through inference. From this, it follows that when referring to reasoning, inference is implied and vice versa. True enough, inference has its distinct meaning compared to reasoning. But then, since inference is the manner through which reasoning as a mental operation is expressed, it would be good to take these two terms as having correlative existence and having a synonymous meaning. So, definition of inference. So, inference refers to any process through which the mind proceeds from one or more proposition to other proposition. Those meaning are already implied in the former. So, the first example is all men are mortal. Barack Obama is a man. Barack Obama is a mortal. The next example is Osama bin Laden is a man. Osama bin Laden is a mortal. And the first example, the first proposition, all men are mortal. Enunciates that all creation who are human beings are bound to be immortal. In the second and the third proposition, respectively, Barack Obama is a man, therefore Barack Obama is immortal. So, the sweeping idea that any woman being is bound to be immortal permits. So, thus, inasmuch as Barack Obama is a woman being, he is bound to be immortal. Simply put, an inference the mind proceeds to draw from one or more proposition. So the first proposition is all men are mortal. To the other proposition, Barack Obama is a man. So therefore, Barack Obama is immortal. So obviously, the meaning of the second and the third proposition are already contained in the first proposition. The same contention can be pursued with regard to the second example. Osama bin Laden is a man. So therefore, Osama bin Laden is immortal. This is because the idea mortal is implicitly contained in the idea man. So that if one is a man, it follows that he must necessarily be mortal. So next is kind of inference. There are two kinds of inference. First is immediate and next is immediate. So immediate inference has two main types, namely education, logical opposition, or oppositional inference. So other education, conversion, obversion, contraposition, and inversion are discussed. So and other logical opposition, contradictory, contrary, subcontrary, and subaltern oppositions and the rules governing their opposition are tackled. So the second kind of inference is immediate inference, will be presented in the next chapter. So we will proceed the second reporter.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. I am Sakinadi Adam and I am the second reporter from the group 4. So today we will be discussing the immediate inference. Immediate inference is a process of reasoning through which the mind passes directly from one proposition to a new proposition, which is nothing else but a reformulation, partial or complete, of the very exact meaning or truth expressed in the original proposition. So immediate inference, a complete argument with only one premises, is called an immediate inference. So when we say immediate inference, it can be formed or made from only one statement or proposition. It also includes the obverse or opposite of the statement given. So for example, no Iraqis are Jews. So the Iraqis is the subject and the predicate is the Jews. So no Jews are Iraqis. So the predicate is the Jews and the subject is the Iraqis. So that's called immediate inference. Induction. This is the kind of immediate inference where a new proposition is formulated either by interchanging the subject and predicate term of the original proposition or by the use of removal of negatives. So induction, it's either interchanging the subject and the predicate. Induction also removes the negative in the statement. So what induction does is to change the position and or polarity of the terms. This often results in a proposition of different polarity or quality. Conversion, this refers to the formulation of a new proposition by way of interchanging the subject and the predicate term of an original proposition with the quality of the original proposition retained. Conversion has two parts, namely the convertend, the original proposition, and the converse decision. So all you need to do to get the converse of the categorical statement is just swap the predicate and the subject. So if you have a type statement such as A, all A are B, the converse of the statement is just all B are A. So for example, New Democrat is a Republican, so that's converted. So the Democrat is the subject and the Republican is the predicate. No Republican is a Democrat, so that converse. So the Republican is the predicate and the Democrat is the subject. Two kinds of conversion, simple conversion and the partial conversion. Simple conversion is a kind of conversion in which the quantity of the converted is retained in the converse. It follows that if the converted is universal, the converse must also be universal, or if the converted is particular, the converse must also be particular. So, the simple conversion, the transposing of the subject and the predicate of a proposition without altering the quantity or quality, no P is S becomes no S is P by simple conversion. So, for example, no men are mortals, no mortals are men. Some mortals are men, some men are mortals. So, that's simple conversion. Number two is partial conversion. So it's a kind of conversion wherein the quantity of the converted is reduced from universal to particular. This implies that partial conversion is applicable only to A and E propositions. As a result, an A proposition can be converted by partial conversion to an I proposition while an E proposition to an O proposition. So partial conversion happens when the quantity of the original proposition is changed in the converse. So for example, all computers are gadgets. So that's A. Some gadgets are computers. So that's I. No computers are robots. So that's E. Some robots are not computers. So that's O. Overversion. This is a kind of induction in which a new proposition is formulated by retaining the proposition of the subject and predicate term and the quantity of the original proposition. However, the quality of the original proposition is changed and the predicate term is replaced by its contradictionary. So, overversion, it is done by changing the quality of the proposition from affirmative to negative, from negative to affirmative, and replacing the predicate with its contradictionary. We call the original proposition overturned and the new proposition overse. So that's the overversion. So last one is the contraposition. This is a kind of induction which results from a formulation of a new proposition whose subject term is the contradictionary of the predicate term in the original proposition. And principle, contraposition is a product of both conversions and overversions. So when we see contraposition, it is performing a conversion on a proposition, swapping the subject with the predicate, and then replacing both the subject and the predicate terms with their complements. Example, let's try one. All dogs are mammals.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmate. There are two types of contraposition, in particular or simple incomplete. A partial contraposition involves the formation of new proposition. Contraposition as follows. A is a contraposition subject in contradictionary of predicate terms of original proposition. Contraponent B. The quality of contraponent is the change in the contraposite in J. The predicate terms in contrapose in the subject terms in the contraponent in a particular contraposition. A proposition in change to E and A proposition to I in or proposition to I. For example, one contraponent all ors are members. A2. Contraposition no non-members are worse. Number 2, contraponent, no mercy in dogs, contraposite, some non-dogs in praise. Number 3, contraponent, some students are studious. 2. Contraposition, some students are students. It must be borne in mind that a proposition do not have contraposition in the observes of proposition are all proposition. After obversion, the next step is conversion, but all proposition cannot be converted, therefore a proposition cannot be subjected to contraposition. B. Incomplete contraposition. A new proposition contraposition is formulated according to the following contradiction. A subject terms a contraposition is contradictory of predicate terms in a contraposition. B. The quality of contraposition does change in the contraposition. And C. The predicate terms in contraposition contradictory subject terms in contraposition. Incomplete contraposition proposition change A, then A to O, and O to O. For example, complete contraposition, the frequency encyclopedia and introduction logic. Contraposition is a form of mediate inference in which a proposition is inferred from another and where the program asks for its subjects that contradictory of the original logical proposition or decade. For example, contraponent are all words or members. Contraposition all members words are non-words. Number 2. Contraponent no pills is a dog. Contraposition some non-dog is non-fish. Number 3. Contraponent some students are not students. Contraposition some non-studious are not non-students. Number 4. Inversion, that is method in induction which the mind talk inversion. In inversion, finally arrived at judgment inverts, whose subject and predicate terms are contradictory. In the subject and predicate terms, the original proposition inverted. The following introduces steps involved in inversion. Inverted, all terrorists are criminals. Observe, no terrorists are not criminals. Converse sample, no non-criminals are terrorists. Observe, all non-criminal are not terrorists. Converse partial, some not terrorists and not criminal. Invert, some not terrorists and are not non-criminals. It's worthwhile to note that from among the 4 types of general propositional, only E propositional of qualified for inversion. To expand the assertion is at the remaining 3 types of condition, proposition should be considered E, I in O. Example of E propositional of expanded, no government official are only.
Good day, everyone. I am Jason Jane Darimag, VSSW1A. So, I am the 4th reporter of Module 6. My topic is all about the summary of the rules of induction. The first one rule is the rule of conversion. So, what is conversion? Conversion is the act or process of converting or state of being converted. So here are the first rule. A. Interchange the subject and the predicate terms like from the sinfulness to righteousness. And the second one is retain the quality of the converted and the converse. C. Do not extend any term, subject, or predicate of the converted in the converse. In simple conversion, I or E, from particular to universal and vice versa. Thus, in simple conversion, the quality of the terms in the converted should be maintained in the converse. So, only proposition E to E and I to I qualify for simple conversion. And the last one, D. Reduce the quantity but retain the quality of the converted in the converse in partial conversion. So only the following types of categorical proposition qualify for partial conversion: A to I and E to O. So the second rules is the rules of aversion. The first rule of aversion is retain the position of the subject and the predicate terms. The second one is retain the quantity of the averted and the averse. The C is change the quality of averted and the averse. And the last one, rules, is the predicate terms of the averted should be changed to its contradictory in the averse. So here are the third rules of eduction. The third rules of eduction is rules of contraposition. So, what is contraposition? Contraposition is a form of immediate inference in which a proposition is inferred from another and where the former has for its subject the contradictory of the original logical proposition predicate. So the first rule of contraposition is a simple partial contraposition. The subject terms of the contraposite is the contradictory of the predicate terms in the contraponent. The quality of the contraponent is change and contraposite. The predicate term of the contraposite is the subject terms in the contraponent. So the second rules of contraposition is the complete contraposition. The subject terms of the contraposite is two contradictory of the predicate terms in the contraponent. The quality of the contraponent is not changed in the contraposite. The predicate term in the contraposite is the contradictory of the subject terms in the contraponent. Logical opposition. So what is logical opposition? Opposition exists between two propositions when they have the same subject and predicate terms but differ from each other in identity, quantity, or vote. Take this example like all Filipinos are Asians. No Germans are Romans. The subject term of the first premise is Filipinos, while the subject terms of the second premise is Germans. On the other hand, the predicate terms in the first premise is Asians, while the predicate terms in the second premise is Romans.
There are four types of opposition. These four comprise the square of opposition, or what logicians commonly call the logical square. Number 1, contradictory opposition. Number 2, contrary opposition. 3, subcontrary opposition. And 4, subaltern opposition. Contradictory opposition. This is an opposition existing between a pair of propositions having the same subject and predicate terms but differing in both quantity and quality. In the illustration of square of opposition, the following propositions are contradictory. Contradictory means is one that says two things that cannot both be true. For example, is the contradictory of some men are not mortal, and vice versa, no man is mortal. is the contradictory of the proposition some men are mortal and vice versa. In a contradictory proposition, therefore, one proposition simply denies the other proposition. This means that contradictories cannot be both true or false at the same time. Number 2, contrary opposition or contrariety. This is an opposition existing between a pair of universal propositions having the same subject and predicate terms but differing in quality, like A is affirmative while E is negative. So the proposition all men are mortal is the contrary of proposition no man is mortal and vice versa. Contrary means is the relationship between two propositions when they cannot both be true. Number 3, sub-contrary opposition. This is an opposition existing between a pair of particular positions having the same subject and predicate terms but differing in quality. Sub-contrary means are exactly the opposite of contraries. It is always the case that at least one is true. If you know that one is false, then you automatically know that the other is true. They can, however, both the true simultaneously. Number 4, subaltern opposition. This is an opposition existing between a pair of propositions having the same subject and predicate terms and the same quality but differing in quantity. According to the square of opposition, the following propositions belong to subaltern opposition. Subaltern opposition means the relation between a universal and a particular proposition having the same subject and predicate and being of the same quality. Therefore, based on the square of opposition, the proposition all men are mortal is the subalternate of the subalternate proposition. Some men are mortal and vice versa. Also, the proposition no man is mortal is the subalternate of the subalternate proposition. Some men are not mortal and vice versa. So that's all.